Welcome to the small holding. We're moving into spring here in the UK and our wonderful Buff Orpingtons will be brooding soon. That means we're going to put into place our breeding plan, which is designed so we are ready for any eventuality, for anything which might go wrong. If you're hatching using an incubator or a broody hen for the very first time, I'd like to take you through some scenarios today and talk to you about the things that we're prepared for, and hopefully that will help you. Welcome, my name's Fiona and behind me are some of our chickens, which include our fantastic Orpingtons. We make use of the natural broody tendencies of this breed to incubate, hatch and raise chicks for us. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with a chick that's so small and a broody hen that's so big, some things can go wrong now and again. But even if you're using an artificial incubator, things can also go wrong there. The time to think about these scenarios is long before they happen, because trust me, panic can set in if you haven't thought about it in advance, and that's not the right time to be making decisions, particularly when you're dealing with something so small and so fragile as a chick. In episode 21 of the podcast with Coffee with the Chicken Ladies, I talked to Chrissy and Holly about our breeding plan, and we go into it in some detail. And today I'm going to show you some visuals to go with that podcast. So give them a listen and then come back and watch the video and let me show you our plan. During this video you're going to hear me talk about various pieces of equipment, and I just want to show you them very briefly so that you're not wondering what on earth I'm talking about. The first thing I talk about is incubators. Now if you bought day-old chicks, clearly these aren't required, but we have two here for hatching, and even though we hatch using broody hens, we still have them on hand for various reasons. So the first one I want to show you, and this is the one I would recommend if you're going to be hatching using an incubator, is a high-end incubator, and we have this Brinzy. It takes 28 eggs. Brinzy are a fantastic make and you get what you pay for, quite frankly. This has a fantastic angle of turn, so you're less likely to get chicks sticking to the inside of the egg. It's fabulous at regulating temperature and it's great at regulating humidity, so everything is done for you. Other than adding water to keep humidity at a given level, this incubator is one which I would highly recommend. The second incubator we've got is a cheap and cheerful one. And we bought this on eBay for roughly about £20, so it was actually very cheap. But as I mentioned before, you get what you pay for. We would not use this for the main incubation process, and the reason for that is it's got this red turning cradle inside and the angle of turn is dreadful. The chances of a chick sticking to the inside of the egg is actually quite high. So instead we use this for a slightly different purpose, because around day 20, 19-20, the egg should stop being turned, and at that point we might put an egg still to hatch inside this incubator, because it can regulate the temperature really quite well, and providing we've got enough water in there to keep the humidity at a reasonable level, this is a great area for hatching a chick. It's got a lovely little basin there, which means the chick can dry out, have a little wander around and get used to the outside world, outside the egg, before it moves on to the brooder. And that's the next thing that I want to show you, because a chick for the first few weeks of its life is unable to regulate its own temperatures until it's got a full covering of proper feathers, the secondary feathers, and all of that down is covered. They need an external heat source. And there's two ways you can go about that. You can either have a heat lamp, which a lot of people use, or you can have a brood plate. And this is our brood plate. We have a Titan brood plate, and you'll notice that we've got legs set at different heights. So here the brood plate is quite high with a long leg, and at the back the legs are quite short. And this means that we can work out an area which is right for the chick at that given day. If we've got the legs too high, the chick's going to spend most of its time here, closer to the warmth. Or if the legs are too short, the chick's going to spend more time here. So it gives us the opportunity to work out the right heat level for those chicks at any given time. So this is what we use. It's fantastic. Clearly you've got to keep them enclosed in a particular space. We use an old tin bath with some net over the top, but you can use old packing crates with some mesh over the top. As long as there's fresh air circulation and the chicks can't escape the brood plates inside, the chicks will be absolutely fine. The other thing which we have on hand is a first aid kit, and Chrissy and Holly from Coffee with the Chicken Ladies talk about this in a lot of detail in their special called Chicks 101. So look up their podcast, a link to their podcast is in the description below, and catch up on that episode to see what they advise for their first aid kit. But I have a couple of other things. They do talk about a pasty butt kit, and I'll show you that in detail later when we talk about pasty butt. But I have two additional items in my first aid kit. The first is wound spray. Now this is a purple spray, which is an antiseptic spray. And the reason it's purple is that red attracts other chicks and chickens. So if you've got a chick that's got a little injury, a small cut, that red will attract other chickens and they could be attacked by the others, making the problem worse. The purple covers it up, which means they're less likely to have any further problems and the wound has got a chance to recover. Now the one thing about this is it can't be sprayed on their head, so if it's on an area where the spray is likely to end up in that area, just give them a light covering of something like a bit of a cotton sheet or a paper towel, but clearly don't hold it tight. Just make sure that it provides a barrier between the spray and the chick's head. The other thing that we have is this, and it might seem a little bit weird, but all of our chicks are handled from day one, so it's actually very easy for us to catch chicks if we need to apply first aid. But you get the odd one that wants to go off and do its own thing and really doesn't want to be picked up at any given time. So this is incredibly useful. It's actually a child's tadpole net, and the reason I've used this is it's got incredibly fine gauge net at the top, so the chick is not going to be injured, so that's fantastic. But it's also got a telescopic handle, which means I can easily just pop this over the top of the chick and then give it first aid or a health inspection. So that is really, really useful. The first scenario we're going to have a look at is around broody hens. And broody hens do need some peace and quiet to incubate and hatch their eggs. There's a natural tendency with hens to want to lay eggs in exactly the same place all the time. So that means that other laying hens could come in and want to continue laying eggs where your broody hen is. That can have two problems. The first is that your broody hen can be violently ejected from the nest site, which can result in eggs being broken. And I'm going to show you a film now of that happening with Ginger. In this coop we've got Ginger, who's sat on a clutch of eggs, and you'll hear a lot of noise and then you'll see the back end of a chicken heading towards the doorway. That's not Ginger, that's another hen who wants to lay its eggs where Ginger is incubating her clutch. Now unfortunately in this fight we lost two of the eggs, two of them were broken, so potentially we've lost two healthy chicks as a result of this argument, and that's the first reason why a separate brood coop is so important. The second issue with the laying hen laying in the same place as your broody hen is that it could mean that your hatch rate is lower. Say for example your broody hen has been incubating for 15 days, so there's only 6 days left until the eggs hatch at day 21. Laying hen comes in, lays its egg, and that egg is only going to be incubated for 6 days, so it's got no chance of ever hatching. But what could happen is it displaces an egg which is viable, so that egg won't hatch either. The best thing to do is get your broody hen into its own coop and its own run so it can sit and incubate in some peace and quiet. I've made a video on what to look for in the ideal broody coop, and a link to that is up above. The next scenario relates to chicks which are both incubated in an artificial incubator and under a broody hen. And it's actually getting out of the egg itself. If you think about it, chicks are tiny and an eggshell is very, very robust. So getting out is an exhausting process. What normally happens is that they make a small hole in the egg, which is called pipping, and that is really very tiring for them. So they can take up to 24 hours to rest at that point. And while they rest, if the humidity level isn't right either in the incubator or underneath the broody hen, they can dry out and adhere to the eggshell itself. Now this can be resolved and the chicks can be helped out, but I'm going to caveat this section because the skin of a chick is tissue paper thin. It is so delicate, so actually extracting them and helping them out of the egg is a very, very delicate process. It takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. If you're going to panic during this process, or if you're going to want to rush, please do not start, because it's possible that you could tear the skin very, very easily, cause that chick pain, and it may be better just to let that chick slip quietly away inside the egg. If you are going to help them, what we use is damp paper towels to very, very carefully and slowly add moisture to the inside of the egg. You clearly got to be careful that the chick is in the right direction so that you don't add too much water and cause it to actually drown. And the second thing is then to gradually peel the egg away, making sure that every single part that you are peeling at any one point in time is sufficiently moistened so that it can easily come away from the chick's skin. If you rush it or if you panic, please do not start this process, but it can be done. This is what a chick looks like once this process has been complete, and this chick was exhausted, so we popped it under an artificial brooder. The next scenario relates to broody hens, and I don't want to put you off broody hens because they incubate, hatch and raise the chicks, and in the main there's very little intervention needed. However, they do have an instinct to go and look for food roughly about the second full day after the first hatch. And there's a good reason for that. Chicks during the hatching process absorb yolk, and that yolk will sustain them for up to 48 hours, both for nutrients and for moisture. But at that point, the broody hen will want to go and look for food. This is a natural thing to do, and they will always leave the coop. We've left food and water inside the coop at all times, but the broody hen will still leave the nest. Now that can cause problems if your clutch of eggs hasn't all hatched at the same time. And theory says they all hatch around day 21, but from experience that's not always the case, and you can have some late eggs and chicks hatching. You can have chicks still in the eggs calling, trying to hatch, and you could have some chicks which have just hatched but don't have enough strength to follow the brood hen yet. They're still recovering from all of that effort from getting out of the egg. Resolving it is actually fairly easy. For those eggs which haven't fully hatched, the chick is still inside the egg, we pick them up and we put them inside an incubator. And for those chicks which have hatched but don't have enough strength, we pick them up and put them under an artificial brooder. Now for all of those chicks which do hatch, we reintroduce them to the brood hen that night. What we do as soon as the chicks have enough strength, at night when the brood hen is roosting, we just slip them underneath the wing, and those chicks make their way underneath the brood hen into the warmth, snuggle up, and the next morning the brood hen doesn't know that she's got extra chicks. It's amazing, we've never had a failure using that method. It's not absolutely guaranteed, but we have never experienced a failure using that method. This is Nutmeg, one of our Orpingtons, and it's day 21 and her chicks are hatching underneath her. 1 hour later and it all changed as Nutmeg left the nest. Now at this stage she had 2 chicks that were very mobile. They'd hatched some time ago, so could move around very easily. At the same time she had 4 further chicks which were in various stages from finding their feet to newly hatched and just drying out. A little while later, and 4 of the chicks had actually managed to follow Nutmeg out of the coop and into the run. That left 2 chicks that are out of shot, but they are there hidden in the nest, who were not capable of following her. They couldn't even stand up, let alone walk at this stage. Now they were becoming more and more distressed and calling for Nutmeg to return to them, but she wasn't coming back. She was staying in that run. Now I do have to say that these are not remote cameras, these are hidden cameras. So it wasn't until I did a routine check shortly after this point that I actually came across the chicks. Now they were cold, so I scooped them up and brought them into our chicken ICU. Chick ICU sounds really complicated, but this is it. It's just an old tin bath with some wood shavings as bedding. On the right there's a drinker on a brick, and on the left there's a brood plate which warms the chick before they go back to their brood hen in the evening. The next scenario is something called pasty butt, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It affects young chicks, so this will affect you whether you've bought them as day-old chicks, whether you've incubated and hatched using an artificial incubator, or whether you've used a broody hen. And there is a myth out there that pasty butt doesn't impact chicks when a broody hen is involved. Trust me from experience, pasty butt happens. So let me show you what that looks like. The chick with the yellow circle shows what the vent area of a chick should look like, so it's beautifully clean, white down feathers in full view. The chick with the red circle shows the starting of pasty butt. So the area around the vent is starting to look a little bit dirty, and at this stage is when I want to intervene. This is my pasty butt kit, and it may not look like much, but it actually is a lifesaver. It's just an old ice cream tub, and what I do is I half fill this with lukewarm water so that the chick, its vent area is covered, but its head is well above water, and it needs to be hand hot, no hotter than that, but not colder because you don't want the chick to chill. What I then do is I take one of these cotton buds that I've got in this little box, and I gradually work away at the feces which is stuck to its vent area. It's really important that this process is slow, and it can take a very long time. And the reason for that is, again, the chick's skin is very, very delicate, so any pressure applied or rushing the process can result in the chick having its skin torn, and you really don't want that. It's not pleasant, and it's not nice for the chick. Once the feces have been removed, I pat the area dry with some paper towels, and then I'll apply with a cotton bud a small amount of olive oil which I've got in this bottle just around its vent area. That should ensure that no more feces stick to the vent. The final scenario to think about is accidents do happen, and this affects all chicks, whether they are hatched using an artificial incubator, bought as day-old chicks, or hatched using a broody hen. All sorts of things can happen. Chicks can jump out of their artificial brooder, they can fall over things, they can hurt their hips, hurt their legs, or things may even fall on them. Or if you've got a broody hen, you could have a catastrophic accidental crushing. Now I'm going to talk you through one scenario that we had with one of our chicks who's now grown up to be a wonderful healthy hen called Frankie, but her story could have been very different. Chicks are absolutely tiny and really quite fragile, and broody hens are very, very large. And now and again you can have an accidental crushing simply by the broody hen accidentally stepping on the chick, and if they happen to be on a hard surface, that can result in catastrophic crushings. Now usually that turns out to be fatal, but in Frankie's case the story was a little different, so let me talk you through that. This is Frankie today, and she has a very mucky face because she's been digging in the soil looking for worms. Around day 3 of her life, we noticed that she had a head injury, and what had happened was her brood hen had accidentally stood on her head, and we were incredibly worried because this injury is very, very severe. Her skull was crushed and she'd lost a lot of skin from one side of her head. Our vet advised us to keep an eye on her because she was showing no signs of pain and she was incredibly active, so we decided to give her a try. She has grown to be one of the most productive members of our team, and she's an incredible broody, very, very attentive to the chicks. If you're interested in Frankie's story, we do have a film all about her, and you can follow that through the link above. What I was hoping to demonstrate through Frankie's story is it's a good idea to think about how you might react if there's an accident before it happens. It may be that you have a friendly vet on call, or a vet who is very close by who can assist you very, very quickly. Or it may be that you need to think about taking action yourself to avoid a chick being in severe pain. But if you are going to do that, what's going to be your threshold for taking that action? And it may be that you decide to euthanize, but are you able to do that? Or are you going to need someone to help you do that? And actually, what's your criteria for saying this chick does not have hope, we need to do something about it? Just encouraging you to have those discussions and think about it, so that if something does happen, you're not panicked and making decisions quickly that you might regret later. Having chicks, I really don't want to put you off this, because having chicks is so rewarding. So please do think about all of these things before starting off, and it means your journey on raising, incubating and hatching chicks will be much smoother. That's our plan for dealing with some of the issues that can arise from incubating, hatching and raising chicks. And I hope that's helped kick off some conversations in your household, or some thinking about how you might want to deal with these scenarios should they happen to you. If you have liked this content, take a moment and give me a thumbs up below. If you're not already a subscriber, come and join us. Hit subscribe and the bell icon, and you'll get to know of every new video as soon as they're published. If you haven't listened to Coffee with the Chicken Ladies podcast, give them a try. It's amazing recording with Chrissy and Holly. I have so much fun. If you've got a question for me, or if you've got an idea for another video you'd like to see, leave it in the comment section and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible, or even make that video for you. But for now, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.